the first thing I'm going to cut is the front piece, and I have my fabric folded into two and my lining piece also folded into two. So I'm just going to use this to cut out my front pattern. So the first thing I'm doing, I'm just marking my starting point. I'm just marking a straight line across on the top, from the top of this particular fabric. So I'm just ruling a line like that. That will be my starting point. From the starting point, I'm coming down 2 inches, then I'll just rule this out. And this second line, I'll be using it as my chest line. Now this is my chest line. Now I know we know the chest line is the same as the armhole depth, armhole circumference divided by 2. So mine is 9. I'll be, whenever I'm taking the rest of my measurement, I'll be making sure my tape, the 9 inch of my tape is on this chest line. Okay, so that's why that's how I'll be putting my tape. It will be at 9 inches will be lying on that chest line, because that's my chest line, and the top part we don't have. Now from the top, I'm marking down 10 inches. That's my bust point. So I'll be marking my bust point, then I'm just going to rule that out. So the next thing I'm going to be marking is my under bust point. So I'll be marking that. It's 13 inches from the shoulder, so I'm marking this. Kindly note that my 9 inches is still on that chest line. It should not move anywhere. Then I'll just be marking my under bust point like so. Roll it out and label it. After getting the under bust point, I'm going to mark my waistline, my shoulder to waist measurement. I'm working with 17. I have already added allowance, so it should be 16, but I've marked 17 plus 1 inch allowance, so that's why it's 17. Okay, so right here I'm just marking my nipple to nipple measurement on my bust point. So I have 4, so I'll be marking the 4 inches on my bust point, under bust point, and on the waistline. And kindly note that I'm taking measurements from the folded part of the fabric. Okay, so this measurement I'm marking from the folded part of the fabric, not the other side that is open. Yeah, so I've just ruled that out, and from the bust point I'm going to go down by 1 inch, and on the waistline I'm going out by half an inch on both sides, like we always do. Then I'll be connecting the dart legs to the top part that I just marked. Now I'm going to come on my starting point, and I'm going to mark in my shoulder measurement divided by 2. So my shoulder measurement is 15. When after dividing by 2, by folding my tape like so, I have 7.5 inch. So I'm just marking that there. Then from the corner, from the folded edge, I'm just marking in 3 inches, which is the neck width. Then from this point now, I'm going, okay, I remember to add half an inch from my shoulder point. Okay, so I added half an inch there. Now I'll measure this part. I have 5 inches, so I'll get the midpoint of that part. Okay, I hope you understood that. So I'm just connecting the midpoint to this point on my bust, the point that I marked my nipple to nipple measurements. You remember that point? That's what I've connected to the top. Now I'm just going to take my bust point to under bust point, and I'm going to mark, mine is 3 inches, so I'm going to mark 3 inches all round, forming my bust circumference. Yeah, so our bust circumference has already formed. Now from that point, that where the dot line is passing, I'm marking half an inch out, and from this other line of the dot I'm still going to mark half an inch out. Then I'm just connecting the points to the dart legs on the waistline like that. Okay. Now I'm connecting this point to the points that I've just marked half an inch out with curves. Don't make it straight, just connect these points with curves. Now on from this line going outwards, not on the folded part, on the other part that's open, I'm marking 1.25. Okay, then on this other side of the line that's facing the folded part of the fabric, I'm marking 3/4 inch. Then I'll just be connecting these points to the bust point like this, the way you see me connecting. I'm just smoothing out this part for it not to be too sharp, so I'm just going in, forming a curve like that. If you have a curved rule, go ahead and use it. That will be so helpful. From the starting line, I'm marking down 1 inch. I'm marking down 1 inch because I want to get a sweetheart neckline on the front. So I'm just connecting this to that point there where you see me connecting. That's where I'm connecting with a curve. If you have a curved rule, use it. Here I'm confirming what I have from the starting point to where my bustier starts. Then I'm just marking it 1 inch because I want to connect my bustier to that point. Like I want to create a new chest line. So that's why I'm drawing a straight line 1 inch down from the previous starting point. Okay, so this becomes my new chest line. At this point now you want to mark your bust circumference, so I'll be marking on my new chest line. Okay, so this is where I'll be marking my bust circumference divided by 4. So I'm just marking it there. Then I'll be adding the 2 inches that this dart will be taking in. So I'm just replacing that there, the 2 inches for the dart plus 1.5 inch sewing allowance. So I'll just be adding it there like so. Here, like that. The next thing I'm doing, I'm coming down to my waistline and I'm marking in my waist circumference divided by 4. Okay, marking your waist circumference divided by 4. So I have 7.5. That's what I'm marking. Then I'll be adding 1 inch for the dart that the dart will be taking in. Adding it there, then 1.5 inch sewing allowance or sewing allowance, whatever. Then I'm just connecting the outer points with my ruler like so. So I think that's it for the front. I'm just going to cut this out, but I'll remember to add half an inch seam allowance at the top of my bustier. Moving on to the back pattern, I have my fabric folded into 2 and my lining. It doesn't necessarily have to be folded into 2. You can just have 2 pieces of the main fabric and 2 pieces of the lining because it's the back. It's supposed to have a zipper. So I'm first drawing a starting line here like so before adding in my zipper allowance. And for the zipper allowance, I'm working with 1.5 inch, so I'm just marking that all through, and I'll be joining with a straight line. From the top of the fabric, I'm marking my starting point. From the starting point, I'm coming down by 2 inches, just like I did on the front. Then I'll just be drawing a straight line here. The point that I just marked is going to serve as my chest line. Okay, so my 9 inch will be there. Then I'm just marking 10 inches down, which is my bust point, and I'll be connecting this with a straight line. Okay, thereafter I'll be labeling the bust point, just not to confuse you. Still taking note of my 9 inch on the chest line, I'm marking my waistline, which is 17 inches down. I'll be marking it all through before connecting it with my ruler, so that will become my waistline. This is my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. Kindly note that I'm starting my measurement from where the zipper allowance stops or starts, from the inner line. Okay, so from that point I marked 4 inches. Then on my waistline I went out by half an inch on both sides of my dart line. Then I'm just connecting the dart legs to the bust point directly. Unlike the front where we came down by 1 inch, this one you're just connecting to the bust point direct. On my bust point, I'm marking my bust circumference divided by 4. So I'll be marking that there. Then I'm adding 1.5 inch sewing allowance. On my waistline, I'm marking my waist circumference divided by 4. Take note of where I'm placing my tape, where my tape is starting. Then I'm adding 1 inch for the dart and 1.5 inch sewing allowance. Then I'll just be connecting. And since the front pieces are a little bit higher than this, so I'll just be extending my back pattern also to match the front pieces. So for I came down by 1 inch from the starting line, because that's where the front pattern or the front pieces were lying. Okay, so I just came down by 1 inch from the top and extended my pattern like so. There's no big deal here. You just go to the starting line and come down 1 inch, then extend this extend it upwards to meet that point. Okay, now I'm just connecting this dart straight up like so. Then that is it. I'm just going to cut this out, and I will remember to add half an inch at the top part of this pattern. Okay, so for the lower part of the dress, which is the skirt, I'm just drafting a basic skirt here. So I'm drawing a straight line at the top, and from this starting line I'm marking down 8 inches, which is my waist to hip measurement. Then I'll just draw a straight line here again, so this becomes my hip line. Now from the waistline again, I'm going to mark down 27 inches. That's the full length of my skirt part of the dress. I'm marking here my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2, which is 4. Then I'm marking down 5 inches, which is my dart length, and I'll just create a dart here. I'm going out half an inch on both sides of my dart line. Then I'll be connecting like so to form my dart. Now on this starting line, which is still my waistline, I'm marking my waist circumference divided by 4 plus 1 inch that the dart will be taking in, plus 1 inch seam allowance. On my hip line, I'm marking my hip circumference divided by 4 plus 1 inch seam allowance. And on my hemline here, on my hemline, I'm marking my hip circumference divided by 4. I'm not adding any sewing allowance. Then I'll be connecting the points like so. I've cut out my skirt, as you can see, so I want to cut the back skirt because the one that I've cut is the front one. So I'm just placing it on my back skirts, on my back skirt pieces like so. I have 2 pieces here folded into 2 like this. Okay, so I've just pinned it down for it not to move. Then I'll be adding 1.5 inch sewing allowance on the center back line. Okay, the part that I've folded is the center front line. Now from that center front line, I'm coming in 1.5 inch, which will act as my zipper allowance because the back of the dress will have a zipper. So I'm just cutting this out. So for my front pieces, I've ironed an interfacing on them. Both the main fabrics and the linings, they have interfacings ironed on them. Now putting aside the lining, this is how I'm going to join the side front to the center front. So I've stitched them down and this is what I have. This is how it is looking. I've done the same on the lining piece. Now I'll put that aside. Okay, for the straps that are on the shoulder, I grabbed my rectangle pieces which are 17 inches long and 3.5 inches wide. But this thing turned out long, so I did cut out later. I'm just going to stitch down like this on both pieces, then I'll be back after that. It's done. Now I'm going to turn this to the right side like that. I have ironed down my straps, so I'll be showing you how I'm going to stitch them down on my front piece. So on my side, my dart lines, I'm going to place them like this. Then I'll just pin them down and sandwich them in between the main fabric and the lining piece. Then I'll be stitching this all through. I'll be stitching it on top and on the sides of these pieces. So I'm going to stitch here and this side and this side. Yeah, I've done that. So I'm just going to snip the curved edges just to have a neat finish. I'll snip that all through, then I'll turn this to the right side. So after turning, this is what I have, and this is how it is looking from the inside. Now grab your back pieces and put aside the linings first, and let's work on the main fabrics. So I'll just put my center backs like so, then I'll arrange my side backs like that. Then I'm just going to stitch my side backs to the center backs like this. So I'll be stitching these seams, the darts like that. Then I'll do the same thing to the linings. So this is what I have. I've stitched them down and I've done the same thing to the lining. Now I'm going to flip them to the right side, taking note of the center back line. The center back line should be in that middle point. Then I'm just arranging this. I'm placing my linings on top of them like so. Go to your sewing machine and stitch the sides, just the sides. Okay, this is what I have. I'm just labeling the top parts of my top for me not to confuse and stitch the the waistline on my top area. Then I'm just going to flip this to the right side. I'm going to turn it out to the right side like that. I'll do the same on both pieces. Now you can see our top. If you chungulia like this, you will see the initials. Yeah, so that's right. Now I'll take my front piece, the one that has the straps already. Then this is how I'm going to put in my straps. Okay, so I'll open it like this and pin. So I'll pin it on the lining, just the lining, don't pin it with the main fabric. So after opening it up like that, you pinning it on the lining, and I'll do the same to the other piece. After pinning, I'm going to turn this to the wrong side. Okay, so this is how it is looking. If you open, you'll see like the pin is, you'll remove the pin and pin it again like with the main fabric like this. Okay, so then I'll stitch this top part. Then same thing applies to this other part. I'm going to turn it out to the wrong side like that. Then I'll remove the pin and I'll pin it together with the main fabric now from the wrong side. Then I'm going to stitch right here. Yeah, so I've stitched that down and this is how it is looking. You can see the straps are sandwiched in between. So I'm just going to turn this out to the right side. At this point, I'm going to stitch the side seams like this, both the side seams. So I'm basically joining the back pieces to the front pieces at the sides. After stitching, this is what I have. You can see it's looking so nice. Yeah, so moving on to the lower part of the dress, I have cut out my linings and they are 1 inch shorter than the main pieces. So I'm going to put my back one aside first, then we will work on the front one. You are going to open up your skirt like so. Then I'm placing my lining on top of it like this. Then I'm just going to stitch the lower part, this down part of the skirt only first, then I'll be back after that. After stitching the down part, I'm going to pull this to the waistline. Then I'll just secure that down with pins and I'll be stitching the sides of this skirt. Now I'm just turning it to the right side for you people to see what we have. I'm then going to stitch down my darts, and that will be it for the front part of the skirt. I'll just put that aside. Now for each back piece, I'm going to put my linings on it and stitch the down part again, just like I did on the front one. So after stitching the down part, I'll pull it to the waistline, pin it down, then I'll go ahead and stitch the sides. Then after that, I'll flip it to the right side and stitch down the dart like this. So basically I've just done the same thing I did on the front pattern. There's nothing different. So I've done the same on both my back pieces and this is how they're looking. Now I'll grab my front pattern and lay it on my working table like that, and this is how I'll be stitching my back on the front piece. But before that, remember our dress has side ruffles, so I'm just going to work on the ruffles first before stitching these parts. Now I'll put the back pieces aside first. Then this is my ruffle. This piece is 6.5 inches wide. I have already stitched the sides. I've already stitched this part. Let me show you. I've folded this part and this other part, so it's only one part that's left raw, but the other parts I've already folded them down. So it's this part that is still raw because I'll be using it to pull gathers. Okay, so I'll stitch down two rows of loose stitch that will help me pull gathers. And talking of the loose stitch, I've already done that, so I'm just going to pull this to form my gathers that I'll use to stitch down the ruffles on the side parts of the skirt. So I'm just going to pull that all through, then I'll come back after I'm done with that. Now once you're satisfied with the length of your ruffles, this is how I'm going to place them. The wrong side is facing up, okay? Then I'm pinning it from a point 1.5 inch down from my waistline. Then I'm going to pin it all through. Remember, this wrong side of my ruffle is facing up, so basically the right side of the skirt is facing the right side of the ruffle. Then I'm just going to pin this on this side, and I'll repeat the same thing on this other ruffle. I'm pinning it from a point 1.5 inch down from my waistline all the way down. Now it's time to stitch our back pieces on the front pieces, so I'm going to place them like this. See, you know where your side seam is, so you're going to pin this side back on the front part of the skirt. So I'm basically pinning the side backs on the front, then I'll stitch them the sides. This is what we have. I'm flipping it to the right side. Then you can see our ruffles, the way they're looking so nice, so beautiful. Now I'm going to join my top part of the dress to this lower part of the dress. That is the reason why I stitched my ruffles at 1.5 inch below my waistline, because I need to join my upper part of the dress to the lower part. Now that's a notch. That's just a notch I'm giving to the center front line, and I'll still give a notch to the center front line of my top part of the dress for me to match the pieces nicely to have a nice finish. I'm still gonna head to pin down my pieces like so, and then I'm just going to head over to my sewing machine and stitch this down. I'll stitch all the way here, and that's done. This is what I have now. This is how my dress is looking. So the only thing that I'm left with is to put in my zipper and finish up the back seam. Then we will be done. I'll stitch the back seam, leaving a slit of about 7 inches. That will act as my slit. Then that will be it. I'll just put on the dress to show you the final look.